Hello, it is me again, Becky. Thank you for stopping by. Today I have some book recommendations for you that take place in a forest setting. I love forest settings within books. They can be creepy forests, they can be magical forests, they could be sentient forests, what have you. I love a good book with forest setting. So I have a stack of books here that all have forest settings in some capacity. Most of these are fantasy romance. There are a couple young adults in here, and I think that's it. I don't think any of them are like contemporary or anything, but we'll see. Who knows? So the first book that I want to recommend with a forest setting is A Daughter of the Trolls by Mackenzie Catron. This is a very short book. It is part of a series, but you can read it as a standalone. This is an upper YA book about a young woman named Sparrow who lives in this very magical glen with a bunch of magical creatures. She is confined to a wheelchair because she has a heart condition. She is tasked with one thing in her village, and that is to make sure that the barrier that protects her village is intact every night so that the evil witch doesn't come in and slaughter this village. And one night she makes a mistake and it causes the barrier to break, and the witch gets in and steals some of her villagers and also kills them. So she has to go on this journey through this magical forest with her childhood friend Rush to try and track down where the remaining people of her village are and try to save them. But this magical forest is not built for a woman in a wheelchair, so she has to navigate that by finally asking for help where she's needing it and to rely on people that she doesn't really know all that much. It is a very atmospheric and magical forest. Like, I could easily visualize all the magical elements that were woven into the story within it. There's at one point vines from trees come and they make a wheelchair for her. It's so magical and so whimsical, and it's really short. So if you are somebody who loves upper YA with no spice but wants that modern fairy tale vibe with a forest setting, I highly recommend this. The next recommendation is The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd Jones. This is about a young woman named Rin who lives on the outskirts of this very deadly forest. She lives in this village and she is a gravekeeper. Or grave digger, I should say. The only problem is if she doesn't dig these graves fast enough or in a particular way, the dead won't stay dead and they end up going into the forest. So this forest is filled with sort of zombie-esque creatures, really. And she meets Ellis, who is a young man in this kingdom who is going around, and he is a map maker. He is essentially mapping out the territory for the king of this land. And he wants her help to sort of map out the village and the forest and whatnot. And in the midst of that, people start dying, and they have to travel through this forest to get to this other land where they have to find out how to break the curse that is causing these dead to not stay dead. There wasn't truly anything special about this forest, except for the fact that it's infested with zombies. My next recommendation is another YA, and this is The Poison Season by Mara Rutherford. This is about a young woman named Indy, I think her name is, and she lives on this very isolated island that is surrounded by this very deadly forest that protects her village from outsiders because her village is a magical village. Magical things take place in there. And anytime an outsider tries to get on her island and get to this village, the forest will kill them, pretty much. And one day she's out and she comes across this young man who has washed up on the shore. And instead of taking him to the elders of her village where he will essentially be killed because he's a man, and I forgot to mention this village is, if you don't do something by a certain age, the young men are sent off this island. So no men are really on this island past a certain age. So when this young man washes up on shore, she takes and hides him in like a little hut in the forest. And there this young man is telling her about the outside world that she has never experienced and seen and what's going on. And she learns things about her village that she never knew either. So she's learning all these secrets from this young man while she is hiding him. This is a sentient forest. It is alive in more ways than just, you know, your average tree is alive. It whispers, it protects, it talks to the villagers, and especially our main character, Indy. So if you're looking for a book with a sentient forest. Here you go. My next forest setting recommendation is Into the Heartless Wood by Joanna Ruth Meyer. I mean, it literally says the Heartless Wood right there, and look at those trees. So in this, we are following a young man. He is actually our main character. His name is Owen, and he and his father and his little sister live in this village that is right outside this very deadly forest that is home to this witch queen and her siren tree daughters. And anytime somebody goes into this forest, the siren tree daughters will kill them and offer them up as a sacrifice to the witch queen. So Owen's mother actually went into this forest and she never came out. And then one day his little sister ends up running into this forest as well. So he chases in after her. And when he goes in, instead of being killed by one of the tree sirens, he is actually saved by her. And he ends up giving her the name Saren because she doesn't really have a name. So he names her Saren. And they actually become friends. This is a bit of a Beauty and the Beast where she is the beast and he is the beauty. She literally looks like a tree woman when he meets her. And then something happens and she sacrifices something to help him out. This was an absolutely amazing book, stunning book, very atmospheric. Again, I could just imagine everything. And I really liked the element of her being the beast and him being the beauty and the brains. He's kind of a nerdy character too. If I had to describe this forest in one word, I would say deadly, because not a lot of people survive this forest. My next recommendation is going to be The Will and the Wilds by Charlie N. Holmberg. This is another really short book. This is about Enna and McCallus. So Enna is this young woman who she lives at the edge of a forest. They all live at the edge of a forest. And she holds this magical stone that can influence the will of creatures. And there are these deadly creatures within the forest called these mistings that this stone protects her from. And when they try to attack her to take this stone, because they don't want her to control their will, she fights back. She ends up going into this forest and summoning an even more dangerous misting, who ends up being McCallus. And she wants his help to banish all the other mistings who are trying to kill her out of this forest. And so he agrees to do this, but only if she will give him a kiss. And while she's reluctant to do this at first, because anytime she gives him a kiss, it will slowly take a piece of her soul to give to him. But the mistings are starting to gather. They're getting stronger. They're getting stronger. They're attacking her. They're attacking her family. And she realizes that she has no other choice but to get the help of McCallus, so she offers him up this kiss. And if I had to describe this forest, it would be dark and creepy. The next one I'm going to recommend is The Wolf King by Atlee Wykes. This is the second in a series, so I don't recommend starting with this one because you will get spoiled for certain things within the series. But in this one, we're following Lowen and Crystalline. Those still remain some of my favorite names of characters ever. Lowen is the new alpha of this wolf pack, and Crystalline is an ice fae, and they have to be forced into this arranged marriage for alliances between the fae and the wolves. And Crystalline's father is a prominent member of the fae, government, and he wants her to spy on Lowen and his clan to see, are they going to be dangerous for the fae people? I want you to map out their territory, send information back. He pretty much wants her to be a spy for him in this arranged marriage. And she agrees to do this because her father is harboring a secret about her mother. She does not know her mother, and she wants to know anything she can because she has magic that not a lot of ice fae have. She's very powerful, but she's kept it suppressed, and she wants to know where this magic comes from. So in spying and doing this for her father, he will give her the information about her mother. So these two set off to Lowen's clan in the woods, in the forest, where they don't really start off on the greatest foot. They're not hateful towards one another. They're just ambivalent towards one another. They're pretty much in it in just alliance alone. He is busy trying to be the new alpha of this pack, trying to make a name for himself, trying to get the support of his other clan members, and he is dealing with being an adoptive father for the first time and navigating that. But through things happening, him and Crystalline actually come closer and closer together. They end up falling in love. Their marriage becomes real. And it's just so good. I loved this book. It got me out of a reading slump. I gave it 6 stars. It was so good. I loved their chemistry. The forest itself isn't really that big of an element within the story, but it does take place in the forest. It would be a lush forest. Like, it's very green, very dense. The next recommendation is going to be Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Pornick. I mean, look at this. Forest vibes, am I right? So this is maybe a new adult, I would say. It's a new adult fantasy romance that is inspired by Polish folklore and mythology. So in this, we are following a young woman named Liszka who has this magic that is becoming a hindrance in her life. It's causing bad things to happen, and she wants to get rid of this magic. So she goes into the forest to try and find this flower that she can make a wish on to get rid of her magic. But this forest is very dark, it's very deadly, there's lots of traps in it, and that's the whole point. She has to find this magical flower within this forest. But what she ends up finding instead is the keeper of the woods, the Leshe. He is this young man who lives in this sentient home, okay, in the middle of the forest. He's immortal, and he protects this forest. And he offers her a deal that if she lives with him for like a year and a day or whatever, that he will give her this flower that she seeks to get rid of her magic. So she agrees to do this, and in living with him, she gets caught up in the mystery and the allure of who he is as the keeper of the forest, why he's immortal, his backstory, and it's just so good. This is one of my favorite books of the year I read it. It's so atmospheric, so, oh God, I don't even know how to describe it. It's not whimsical. It's magical, I guess. That's the best way I can describe it. But this forest is full of like booby traps almost, and these magical creatures that come out and will try and mess with her anytime she tries to leave this mansion. Next up, let me recommend to you an adult dark fantasy romance called How Does It Feel by Janine O'Reilly. I absolutely loved this first book in this series, okay? I DNF'd the second one, and I don't plan on ever continuing this series, but this first one, whew, loved it. So this is about Callie Ann Mendix. So Callie is a young woman who is studying mushrooms and how they affect the migratory patterns of moths, because when she was younger, she saw these moths and she also saw fairies, and so she thinks fairies are connected to these moths. So she's just grown up thinking if she can study them, maybe she can find the fairy again. And one day she is out in this forest and she discovers a fairy ring of mushrooms, and she enters it and she falls down into the Unseelie Court, where she is met with some very, very dangerous creatures. The prince of the Unseelie Court, Mendix, he thinks that she is there to spy on him, and so he's out to kill her. He's out to kill her. He is not nice. This is truly an enemies to lovers story. He throws her in a jail with some very questionable creatures that do very questionable things to her, and then he offers her up a way to escape by participating in these trials. And in doing so, he ends up becoming infatuated with her. Like, I don't even know if he's actually in love with her. He's just fucking infatuated with her. So this forest is ominous. It's chill-worthy, because even though it seems like just your normal forest that you would be walking through, because of how this book is written, around every corner and every step she takes, I could hear the leaves crunching, and I could hear the silence. And I was always on the edge of my seat, like when she would turn a corner or something, I was expecting something bad to be there. And when it wasn't, I'd be like, oh, thank God. But then when she would be laying in her bed in her cabin at night and she would hear noises, I'm like, what is that? So it's very ominous and very creepy. The next book recommendation is The Bane Witch by Ava Morgan. So this is a contemporary paranormal. This is about Pierce, who grew up in a very mysterious household with her mother. She ate poisonous berries as a child, and she did not die. And so as she's grown up, she's had this craving for poisonous plants. And she never understood why. And it turns out that Pierce is a Bane witch. She is a woman who is able to sense the malevolent intentions of men specifically. So if you are a man hater, if you are looking for a book with get your revenge girl vibes, here you go. So she can sense the malevolent intentions of men specifically, if they're gonna rape somebody, if they're gonna kill somebody, etc., etc. And when she senses this, she gets an appetite for poison. So she will go out and she will consume and ingest poisonous plants. And then she will either use that saliva in her mouth, she will put it in things, or she will kiss men or whatever, and she will kill them. This was an absolutely amazing book. I was so sucked into the plot of this. I loved the botanical elements of this and how the author really informed me about the plants she was eating and the way that they poison people and what they could be used for other than poison. It was freaking fascinating. I loved it. But the forest in here is a very isolated forest. There's nothing truly like magical or sinister about it. It's just very, very isolated. My next recommendation is The Pumpkin King's Bride by Allegra Rose. This is a monster fantasy romance. This is about Maribel, who lives in this village that's next to a forest, yada, yada, yada. And the people of this village do this ceremony every few years to give tributes to the Pumpkin King, who protects their village from more malevolent spirits. And Maribel is new to this village, and so she just thinks it's a quirky little ceremony, you know. But it ends up being true, because on the night of the ceremony, she runs into the Pumpkin King. And he asks her to come back and visit him in his house. And because she's new, she doesn't really have anybody, she doesn't really have any friends or anything like that, she's immediately drawn to him, and she sees past his scary exterior, because he literally looks like a pumpkin. Literally pumpkin head. She ends up going and she befriends this man, and she's very attracted to him, and they end up falling in love. She becomes his bride. It's right there in the title. And then something happens that tears them apart. And that's all I'm gonna say. This book made me laugh, and it was so fun. I think I read it in a vlog. I will link it in the description below if you want to go check it out. I think it was for my Halloween Smut vlog that I did last year. I had a great old time with this book. I am going to describe the forest as a very magical forest, because it houses magical creatures and there's magical elements within the forest. Certain things within the forest can be used for weapons, and it was just so fun. The next one I'm going to recommend is another second book in a fantasy romance series, and that is Dragon Prey by S.A. Hunter. So I don't recommend starting with this one. You should really start with Unicorn Bait. April, please go read Unicorn Bait. So in this, we are following Naomi and Tavik. They are married, and in the first book, Naomi was mistaken for a princess of a kingdom that Tavik took over, because they look very similar. So in the second book, it is told a lot through the princess that Naomi was mistaken for's point of view, and she is out for revenge because she sees what Naomi has, and she's like, that should be mine. That man should be my husband. His kingdom should belong to me because you were mistaken for me. So she goes out of her way to do something that messes up their marriage. And it's a story of how Naomi has to fight for her marriage to save Tavik, and how she has to think of whether or not she wants to make some sacrifices in her marriage. Let's put it that way. That's all I'm going to tell you. But I loved this. It was so freaking unique. There's not a lot of world building or anything like that. You're pretty much just dropped into this world, and it is about a romance. But if I had to describe this forest, I would say it's a misty forest full of magical creatures, including dragons. And my last recommendation, y'all, I have way more recommendations, okay, but I had to limit it, is going to be Tusk Love by Thea Guanzin. So this is a very lighthearted, very cozy fantasy romance about Guinevere and Osric. Guinevere, at the start of the story, she is on this journey to reach a new city where she is supposed to be put into this arranged marriage. And her caravan ends up getting set upon and set on fire for reasons. And Osric comes in and he saves her. And Osric is this very grumpy orc who just wants to be left alone. He just wants to mind his own business, and he's actually wanting to go and find his relatives in the north that he's never met before. So saving this woman who's all bubbly and bright and sunshiny, it kind of grates on his nerves. He's very annoyed by her, but he just can't help but fall in love with her. So he agrees to actually be her bodyguard and help her get to the city to her betrothed safely. And along the way, they travel through forests. They travel through, I think, some deserts. They travel through a bunch of landscapes. And they end up falling in love, and it's just so sweet. Osric is he's such a grumpy, but he's such a sweet character. I freaking loved him, and I just loved their relationship dynamic. The forest in here, I would say it's a very vibrant forest. I want to say it had like a bunch of different like colored flora and fauna, and it's got some unique creatures in it and some unique atmosphere in it as well. So if that all sounds like something you're interested in, check this out. So those are some book recommendations with forest settings that I have for you today. Let me know down in the comments what's a book that you enjoy with a forest setting. But if you don't want to comment that but would like to let me know you made it to the end of this video, could you just leave me a treat emoji, please? And with that, until my next video, thank you so much for watching, and go out there and read a book with a forest setting. Bye!